We're so excited.
So
you
excited.
don't know this. We tried to do this one time before, and technology said no.
Yeah, technology failed us. Actually, what happened was we had some earbuds immediately check in, and we lost all microphone on Christina.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating.
That was really fun troubleshooting
time.
that. Thank you, Bruce. So welcome, Cristina Amigoni.
Yay.
She is the co-founder of
Thank you.
Siamo, which is a leadership development, coaching, and organizational transformation business. They put the human, the person, first and foremost and center to everything that they do. And they're really passionate about authenticity and being a high-performing team and being a vulnerable and courageous leader. So
all the stuff that we get very excited about.
All the stuff we get excited about too. So welcome. Cristina.
Yay. Oh, that's the
Thank you.
Applause.
Yes, that's the round of applause.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
We need a little Rocky music.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Cristina, tell us a little bit about you, about your business, and maybe even who your ideal customer might be.
Ooh, okay. So the fun part about having to redo this is that I got to think about my answers all over again.
We like to be spontaneous.
But let's see what I remember. And so I would say, Siamo, first of all, the name, it stands for we are in Italian. I grew up in Italy, born and raised. And when we were looking for a name for our business, we knew what the core was. We knew what the mission was. We couldn't find the right name that described what we really stand for. And it took us, I think, about 9 to 12 months. I mean, it was a long process to come up with the name of a business. And it came to me in a dream, a half dream. It was kind of like those moment in the morning when you're awake, but you're not fully awake. And I kept having these words in my head, and I was like human and we are, and human and we are. And that's when I was like, siamo, we are. That's it. That's the center of everything. And so I would say the name says it all, because we do focus on the we. So we do focus on the power of we're not alone. And we are part of a much bigger universe community. We are interdependent with everybody else. And so how do we harness the we? How do we get back to thinking we, not me? Which I know you guys really appreciate that. Yes. And the R really comes from that we're human. So we're human being, not human doing. And especially in workplaces, that gets a little confused into we expect to be human doing, but we're human beings. So how do we understand the being behind the employee number, the Excel spreadsheet, the line item, the budget? Where's the being, and how do we highlight that being?
Oh, love it. Love it. So who do you think would be your ideal client? I'm out there, I have a business, and who is that perfect client for you?
Our ideal clients are the ones who already believe that humans are the biggest assets in a company. And so they are the ones that don't look at people as resources and just, disposable doings, human doings that just check off tasks, but really focus on, we know that happy employees, fulfilled employees with joy, who find meaning in what they do, create this ecosystem where whatever the company is trying to reach, it will reach it and surpass it. So one of the things that we decided from the beginning was we can't go out there and convince somebody that this matters. We can help the people that already know this matters, but they may not have the tools, the time, or even the external perspective. One of the things that one of our clients told us is having this external perspective, it's hugely helpful, because we're not in it. We're not in the storm. We're not in the mush. We're not in the mess. We empathize with it, and we have to pull ourselves out of it sometimes when we empathize too much, but we're not in it. So we're able to see the whole picture much more clearly than people that are in it.
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
Why do you think it's such a challenge, Cristina, for us as businesses to think that we have human beings, right, as opposed to human doings
or
right?
resources.
Why do you think we screw this up so badly?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have the answer. I would say that it's hard work. I think it's because it's really hard work. It's not very easily measurable. And I think with the modernization of numbers and data and bottom lines and dollars, it's so hard to relate those. And it is subjective that it's just easier. It's easier to just look at a task list and be like, well, here's your task list, go do it. There's also this notion that work is supposed to be a bad thing, like we're supposed to hate our work. I've heard quite a lot of people say that, and it breaks my heart every time I hear somebody say like, yeah, I don't like my job, but it's work, that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. We are human beings at work. We don't separate the two, not only, but we spend the vast majority of our life at work. If we think about the fact that we're kids growing up, so we're not quite as conscious and adult yet, and then when we retire, we're sunsetting, really. And so the vast majority of our most productive, most meaningful part of life is at work. So it's again, like we're being at work, we're not just doing.
I'm curious to know, and then I'll let Gail ask her question, because I know she's pointing at me under the table to make sure that she gets a question. I was thinking about your comment about just modern organizations today still have this legacy of coming out of the production line, right? So it was very clear what people did in production lines. And today, there are some organizations that still behave and operate that way. Most of them don't. And what's incredible is we haven't let go of that model yet. We still haven't been able to say, well, that model doesn't work. Let's do something else completely different. We still like and think about in those very structured processes, which can be good and bad, in my opinion.
Did you have a question?
No, it was just that's why I wanted to comment. That's right. I just wanted to show that I was listening to Cristina.
Love that.
Have a dialogue.
Okay.
Oh, I feel heard. So thank you.
Yes. That's good. So I would love to know. I mean, I think first of all, I very much resonate with this idea that we need to be thinking of our people as people and not resources as human beings. I really love that. Also. So we know we've got some shifting to do in terms of the way that we think about that. When you think about kind of the skills that are part of a really high-performing team or really high-performing leaders, what are the skills that you think we're missing right now that maybe we're aware of, we're just not putting energy toward doing something about that? What do you see, or maybe like the main one or the main couple of things that we're missing in the people skills side of things?
Yeah, there's tons, and I'm sure none of them will resonate with you too. I would say one of the first in priority, yes, but also first just in sequence of how do we even bridge this gap that is being created between humans is listening. I mean, we don't learn how to listen. We don't spend a lot of time actually listening to what somebody else is saying. There's so much noise in our head. There's so much eagerness to listen to our own voice, to get our opinion, to move to the next task, to check off the list, to look at the 15,000 notifications we get, that we don't actually listen. And listening is hard, which just goes back to like, why do a lot of organizations or as a society we don't focus on it? It's like because this stuff is hard. Truly listening does take emptying our minds as much as we can and really being there for the other person. So one of the best definitions that I like about deep listening is that it's really not about it's not just about understanding, it's helping the other person understand what they're trying to work through. And we can't do that if we are jumping in, if we are like, oh, here's my story and this is what I did, and just do this. how many times are we in meetings or conversations where we ask a questions or we hear something and the people that are listening, because they're not participating, they're like, that didn't answer the question. That what was asked or what was being shared was not addressed at all.
Yeah, it's very true. In fact, for me, I consider it a journey that I'm on to become a better listener, because there are things just about me that I know, behaviors I exhibit. And then as we learn more about kind of the brain, and like we can comprehend up to, I think it's 600 to 800 words per minute. We can only speak, and this is American English, about 130 words a minute. And so it leaves our brain open for all, like you said, all of this other stuff they could be doing, thinking about what they're going to make for dinner, and judging the person and what they're saying, and trying to find flaws in what they're saying, and forming an opinion and wanting to say that, or even totally thinking about something completely different. And so it does take a lot of effort. And I think that you just hit the nail on the head too. It is hard. And sometimes it's easier to learn how to create a pivot table in Excel than it is to listen with a really open heart. And so my question for you too is, what might be a tip that somebody could do or use if they find that they're trying to be this incredibly deep listener, this active listener, and their brain is starting on that tangent? What might you recommend that they do to kind of help with that?
So I would say it's a two-way street. So the listening is not just about I'm listening and you're speaking. So I think that the role of the speaker is also to first ask and preempt the moment, meaning a lot of the times we're interrupted. We're doing something else and somebody just comes over and just starts chatting away. And the brain, and you study the brain very well, but we can't multitask. We can pretend we're multitasking, but the brain actually can't multitask. When the brain is actually focused on one thing, it cannot focus on a second thing or third or fourth. And so, which means from the speaker's point of view, if it is a time that needs an actual response and an actual focus, ask for it. Is this the right moment? I have something I want to talk about, and it may take more than a couple of minutes, and there's some things that I'm working through. When is a good moment, to have your full attention? So that's the kind of, I didn't answer your question, but that's the responsibility of the speaker, as opposed to like, well, you never listen to me. I'm like, well, stop coming to me when I'm in the middle of a call or when I'm typing an email. Like, there is a responsibility on the other side too. From a listener perspective, is acknowledging whether that is for ourselves. Is this the right moment? Am I so worried about the next meeting or a presentation I have in an hour and a day that even if I have the time, my brain is not going to be here? So be honest with ourselves and with the other person. Like, yes, I can fully focus on you because I don't have anything else that's taking my attention from a worrying, anxiety, priority perspective. And then get ourselves away from all the notifications. So shut down. One of the things that I did for this podcast is I put myself on Do Not Disturb. I shut down all apps except for the Chrome to be able to do this. So step away from all the distractions. Take deep breaths. That also helps with clearing the jumble in our heads. Take deep breaths. And also recognize when we have a script. So recognize when we have that tendency to want to intervene and be like, oh, I have a good story. Oh, I have a good, piece of advice. All of those are allowed. We're not saying they're not allowed. And we prefer when people ask for permission, when somebody's sharing something and they have had the space to share that, is ask for permission. Like, hey, I had a similar situation in the past. Would it be helpful for me to share it in this moment? Instead of jumping in and just sharing that advice. And so really making it about the speaker, and it's like, this is their time. Realizing what assumptions we're maybe making, what the next question may be, and then realize I'm like, oh yeah, that's not at all where I thought the story was going to go. So let me go back to actually listening and not thinking about what's going to be said next.
Oh, I love it. I love that so much. In fact, as soon as you said take a deep breath, did you?
Yeah.
I totally did. So I feel like all of us can do that for a moment. Let's just do that. 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
That is some great advice,
Yes.
and definitely resonates for us. Some similar things that we talk about in our trainings as well. And, I really love the idea that there's responsibility on both sides. It's not a one-sided thing. So
yeah,
great.
It's that whole thing of just because it's a crisis for you does not mean it's a crisis for me. And so we have to come together as kind of a meeting of the minds of, do I have time to solve or hear about and understand what's going on, or do I need it in order to hit the deadline that I'm currently working on, give space to allow to and communicate back.
That makes me think of the just do it moments.
Yeah, those are good.
Sometimes when we talk to different leaders about, let's say, empathy or listening, one of the things that leaders have brought up to us is sometimes I just need to go tell someone something and it needs to happen, or, it is a crisis and I can't wait for it to be the exact right time. And I always think about it like kind of a bank account, right? So you're making all these really great deposits. So the stuff that you just talked about, Cristina, doing all of those things and, really being kind to one another, empathic, emotionally intelligent when you approach one another and when you're listening and speaking. And then when you have those moments of gotta happen, the just do it moments, then you can make that withdrawal because there's so much trust and respect between you based on all the other behaviors. So that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, that's really good.
I know you have another question.
I do. So, Cristina, what is the best piece of advice professionally or personally that you've ever gotten in your life? What's the best piece of advice?
Yeah.
And then share it with us and give it in context, because maybe it'll help somebody else out.
Love it.
Okay. 2 of them. I'll choose 2. One is professional and personal. The other one is both. So the first one was from my boss, my manager, when I worked in New York. I was very young in consulting, and he actually told me something that at that moment it didn't hurt, but it was hard to digest. And as a young, mid-20-year-old, I didn't quite understand what he was saying. And then as I kept thinking about it, it really shaped the way I approached a lot of the rest of my career. And his advice was that if you are indispensable, you're not promotable. So don't work so hard to become indispensable. And it's against what a lot of we think we need to be. We need to become indispensable so that we don't get laid off, so that we don't lose our job, so that we become so needed that they can't do things without us. The trick for that, the flip side is that it's true. If you're indispensable, it's very hard to promote you because there is people can't think of you not being in that position, which means you can't do something else. You're going to leave a hole. So yes, work hard. This is not an excuse to be lazy and not work hard. Work hard, go above and beyond, but always look for ways to be able to leave behind what you've done. Like, who can pick it up? So don't make it so that if you leave, now everything is a standstill. Like, how can you train others? How can you leave documentations? How can you constantly be planting ways that if somebody were to take over for you when you're on vacation, things don't stop. They can actually continue. So that was a big one. And then the other one I learned in coaching, also very hard to digest. It's one of those daily disciplines to remind myself, which is if a button is being pushed, it's because there's a button there to begin with. So when we get triggered, it's not just we're the victim of somebody doing something. Well, they pushed the button. Why is there a button? So our role in this is, why is there a button? Also, because if we actually do some of that self-work, we can realize that only some people can push that button. So the button doesn't exist for everybody. And so that's one of the first questions I ask myself. I'm like, if somebody else had done this, would I be triggered? If the answer is no, then there's a big button there. Then it's really half of the responsibility of the reaction is mine. It's not just the person that did something or said something.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's great. A lot of buttons. We were speaking to somebody else Rebecca yesterday. We had another podcast interview, and she talked about a button although her button was
yes.
a dance button. So
90-second dance button.
It literally was a button
Ooh.
that you pressed, and then it played EDM dance music.
And everybody got up
and then
danced.
everybody had to dance, and then once the music
Nice.
stopped, they sat back down.
I really like that, Christina. I really like the idea of why is there a button, and also the exposure of that button to certain people and not others. And
why is that? Why is that button there for you and not for Christina?
Yeah,
right?
it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, awesome. What is inspiring you and making you happy right now? What is just something you're looking forward to, something you're reading, something you can't wait to do, something that's making you happy? What is that?
I would say work. I would say that's the answer for me 99% of the time, which is where I go back to, like, work doesn't actually have to be miserable. It can be energizing. Our relationships with our clients, we're lucky to get into situations where we get really close with our clients, and we have, very good relationships. They're very open and honest relationships. We become part of the team. Really, it's pretty fascinating sometimes, because I think they do forget that we're not part of the company every once in a while. But it's the beauty of that, especially this week, is that we're iterating. We started a kind of a next level leadership program, almost like a leadership 201, for a bunch of senior leaders, middle to senior leaders, who have gone through our leadership program last year. And so some of them were promoted, and so we were asked to put together something specific for their level to really hone into some of the stuff that they had learned and go to the next level. So now that they have been promoted, how do they go into the next level? And so this week, especially, it's part of the program is individual check-ins with us. So it's both with Alex and I. So it's 2-on-1, more than 1-on-1. But those are so energizing, because being in a room with 17 people, you get some, but you don't get a lot of what's actually happening with the individual. And so being able to actually talk to them one-on-one, it's always, we love that. It's always wonderful. It gives a lot of joy. We understand who they are as humans. We really create that space for them to be human. And it's fulfilling, not just for us as an experience, which it always is, but it's also fulfilling when we hear the feedback of how it's helpful for them, especially in a upper middle management position in a large company. You don't get time to think. You don't get time to reflect. There's so many fires and triages that you're constantly dealing with, as in a big change where some could be. That you don't get your time to think about, how do I want to become a better leader? What's happening with me? What would help me? How can I focus on this stuff? And so this is almost our gift to them, is we give them this hour with us this is about you, not about your employees, not about your managers, not about your tasks, not about the projects, not about the customer. This is about you and only you. And so at the end, they usually appreciate that. And it's like, wow, this is really, it's hard work, because we get them to open up and reflect, but they appreciate the pause on, how do I keep growing as a leader, as a person, as a human.
Oh,
it's great.
That's so fabulous. You made me realize or remember this particular study. I think it's a couple of years old now, and I apologize because I can't remember the source at this time, but there was a kind of wide sweeping questionnaire that was sent to leaders. And one of the questions was, did you receive training to move into your leadership role? And it was some ridiculous number, like 58% of people who are in leadership roles have never had any training on how to be a leader. So they're moving into those roles based on, performance, and then expected to just pull out of thin air how to lead. And so it's so great that you're out there and you're doing this, and that particular client is so aware of the need to it's not just a one and done. Well, now you're a leader after one class. It's now there's a deeper level of understanding and leading. To your point, so many different things, empowering others to do what you do and know how to do it, and stepping back and collaborating and letting others guide the way, and just so many things that just don't happen organically. So I think it's pretty spectacular that you and your business partner, Alex, are out there doing
what you're doing.
Such great work.
Yep.
And, we definitely have an affinity for the work that you do because we're out there doing some similar things, and there's a lot of need in the people area and the human area. Mm-hmm. And so we are excited for Siamo.
Oh,
that means we are excited for we are.
We are excited for we are. Right.
We have to say it like Siamo.
Sí.
It's similar to like I love you in Spanish, where they say te amo.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
Sure.
Because I'm an expert in all of those languages.
All languages. She's a polyglot.
Oh, well, Cristina, it has been awesome having you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time and your energy. We definitely can sense that your work is not work, and it's energizing and bringing you joy and bringing many others joy too.
Right. Making people do the work.
We're glad you're doing what you're doing, and we're super glad to know you and as a friend as well. So thank you. Mwah. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for what you do to make the world a better place for humans.
Woohoo!
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.